A colleague of mine was caught in and survived this dry slab avalanche. The avalanche was triggered by the third person ascending the slope and stepping off the tracks where the slab was thin over a rock. 2 people were killed in this dry slab avalanche. The avalanche was triggered from where the slab was thin by 3 skiers traversing the slope. Notice that in spite of the rocky ground, the snow surface is smooth, potentially hiding rocks that bulge into the snowpack. Even where there are no rocks bulging into the snowpack, wind can create a slab that is thin and easily triggered in places. At the side of this shallow gully, the slab was triggered by a skier where it was thin. In the next few minutes, we're going to look at the insidious conditions that favor a persistent slab avalanche being triggered from where the slab is thin. We'll start by looking at how the snowpack forms over uneven ground. Here's a clip of snow falling on bare ground with some rocks. After the snowfall, the snow surface is a little smoother than the bare ground. The next snowfall will further smooth the snow surface. Now imagine a period of clear weather with cold nights as shown in this photo. A weak layer of facets often forms at the snow surface. Where there is little wind, a layer of surface hoar is likely to form on the snow surface. Either way, a persistent weak layer, shown by the orange line, forms. Sometimes the persistent weak layer connects depth hoar that forms around buried rocks. The next snowfall will bury the persistent weak layer. The new snow surface will be smoother over the uneven ground. Same for the next snowfall. Wind will move snow from the bumps to the hollows, further smoothing the snow surface. Wind often thins the snowpack on top of convex slopes. Eventually the snow surface will be so smooth that few or none of the areas of thin slab can be seen. Now let's add a skier. The stress under a skier, snowboarder, or snowmobile decreases with depth. This diagram shows a red bulb below the skier where the stress is high. As the skier descends, the high stress bulb does not reach the persistent weak layer over the first rock, and not quite where the slab is thin over the second rock. However, the high stress bulb under the skier reaches the persistent weak layer over the third rock and starts a crack in the layer. If the crack is long enough, it will propagate outwards, including up the slope. At some point, upslope of the skier, the slab will fracture, forming a crown. The farther the crown fracture is above the skier, the greater the avalanche force is likely to be on the skier and the greater the consequences. Of course, there are other factors like terrain and slab thickness that contribute to consequences. Next, the slab starts to move downslope, carrying the skier down the slope. Once more, here is the animation of triggering, crack propagation, and slab release. For a 2D perspective on crack propagation from a trigger point, let's look again at this slab avalanche in a shallow gully. From the trigger point, the crack propagated within a persistent weak layer of depth hoar on the ground. Or, at least, this is how I visualize a crack propagation. Everyone, and I mean everyone, likes to make fresh tracks. Under the conditions shown in this video, if the first person on the slope doesn't trigger the avalanche, the second might, or the third, or the fourth. You get the idea. Tracks on a slope simply mean that no one has found a trigger point yet. How can we tell if there is a persistent slab of variable thickness? The avalanche bulletin is very good at telling us if there is a persistent slab in our area, and sometimes indicates if the wind has made a persistent slab of variable thickness. Sometimes there are surface clues such as exposed rocks or wind effects such as scouring or pillows. Sometimes probing can help you determine if the snowpack thickness is highly variable. Sometimes we just don't know if the persistent slab has thin spots. To start a discussion about managing the risk associated with a persistent slab of variable thickness, here is a hypothetical scenario based on this complex alpine terrain. We, as diligent backcountry recreationists, get the regional bulletin and make a trip plan the night before. The bulletin says that the danger is moderate in the alpine, which means that, over the region, the backcountry forecasters think that human-triggered avalanches are possible, but not likely. The primary avalanche problem type is persistent slab. In our trip plan, this alpine terrain is a key part of our Plan A. The next day, when we reach the alpine, we see local wind effects, which is common in the alpine. The wind pillows tell us wind has created areas where the snowpack, and likely the persistent slab, are thick, and areas where they are thin. There are a few rocks poking through the snowpack, so we can be sure there are buried rocks as well. Should we use our terrain skills and manage the group to minimize the risk of triggering the persistent slab, especially in areas where we suspect the slab is thin? Or should we avoid the complex snowpack in this complex terrain and consider one of the lower risk alternative routes in our trip plan? Here are Scott Savage's thoughts on managing complex situations.
And the less is more. So the more complex the situation, the snowpack, what you're doing, the simpler the solution needs to be.
What are your thoughts for managing the avalanche risk due to persistent slabs on these slopes when the regional avalanche danger is moderate? Would you ride it? Please put your thoughts in comments below. Let's discuss strategies for managing this terrain. Thanks for watching.